Hello, my dear students. Continuing with the chapter measurement, we have come to the last section of this chapter and we are going to discuss the topic measuring instruments, under which the instruments which I am going to cover in this class are, firstly, we will discuss meter scale, which is used to measure length. Then we will discuss clocks, very common instrument used to measure time. Then we will discuss a measuring cylinder for volume. And the next instrument we are going to discuss today is a common balance, which is used to measure mass. So these are the instruments which I am going to discuss today, and the things that we are going to discuss today regarding these instruments are, firstly, for all these instruments, we will talk about least count, which is very important for any instrument, okay, for taking measurement. And secondly, we will also learn the errors contained in these respective instruments and why these errors may arise and what can we do to minimize these errors. So these are the things that we are going to discuss in today's class. So before we begin and before we jump into any of the instruments particularly, we will first learn what least count means in general for any instrument that we use for measurement. Least means minimum, okay? So least count, the definition is the smallest measurement that can be taken an instrument is called least count of an instrument. So that means least count happens to be the value of the smallest division that occurs in the instrument. If I take an example of a scale that we use in day-to-day life, that is called a meter scale. All right. Now, if you have noted the markings 0, then 5 is a little higher, 1. Now this interval from 0 to 1 in a meter scale is equal to 1 centimeter. Alright, so when we talk about the 10 divisions in a common scale that we use, the 10 divisions will be giving you a count of a measurement of 1 centimeter. But least count means the value of the smallest division that occurs in an instrument. So the smallest division is this one division. Therefore, if I take unitary method here, one division is going to be 1 by 10 centimeter, which is equal to 0.1 centimeter. If you talk about this value in millimeter, if you want to convert this, this is equal to 1 millimeter. So the least count of a meter scale is equal to 0.1 centimeter or 1 millimeter. It cannot give you an accurate reading of any value which is less than 0.1 centimeter or which is less than 1 millimeter. That is the meaning of least count. So that was least count of a scale, that is equal to 0.1 centimeter or 1 millimeter. Okay, if you want to take finer measurements, we have to go for some sophisticated instruments like a screw gauge and vernier calipers, whose least count will be even smaller. Okay, but we are not going into that. We will stick to a measuring meter scale only right now. Okay, the next instrument I'll take is a clock. All right, clock from 12 to 1, then we have a 3, 6, 9. Okay, and we all know that a clock has got 3 hands. Okay, one is called hour hand, that will give you an account of hour covered. Second is the minute hand, and the third one is the second hand. And this second hand is the hand that is going to be, that is giving you the minimum count of a clock. Okay, so I will just take the seconds hand. Okay, now when it starts from this 12 and comes back to 12, it has covered a time interval of 60 seconds. Okay, so one revolution is equal to 60 seconds. That means it has covered 1 minute. All right, now this is a total revolution. When it just ticks once, all right, so it has ticked 60 times to give you 1 minute. So 60 ticks or 60 division is equal to 1 minute. Then how much time will it cover when it just passes through one division? So one tick is equal to 1 by 60 minute, that is equal to 1 second. So the least count of a clock that we use in our day-to-day life is equal to 1 second. It cannot give you a time, it cannot measure a time interval that is less than 1 second. Or some clocks may have 10 divisions here. That means it totally covers a distance of it totally covers 120 divisions in one revolution, that means in 1 minute. Okay, so if that kind of clock is taken into consideration, then I can write 120 division is giving you a time interval of 1 minute, then one division is giving you a time interval of 1 by 120 minute, that is half a second. Okay, so a common clock that we use in our day-to-day life can be accurate up to 0.5 second, not less than that. Okay, so this clock compared to the previous one whose least count was 1 second happens to be the more precise and accurate clock because its least count is smaller. That is about least count of a clock. The next instrument that we are taking is a measuring cylinder. Now this measuring cylinder that I have taken, it is a 100 ml measuring cylinder. Okay, measuring cylinder is an instrument that measures the volume, by the way. Okay, so this particular measuring cylinder that I have taken, just to explain to you the least count, I have taken a measuring cylinder whose total volume is equal to, which can measure a volume up to 100 milliliter. Okay, now here you can see the bottom, the first 10 division is giving you 10 milliliter. Then how much will one division give you? It will be 10 out of 10 milliliter, that is equal to 1 milliliter. So I can say that least count, which is abbreviated as LC for any instrument, for this measuring cylinder is 1 milliliter. That means the minimum volume it can measure is 1 milliliter. Or volume less than 1 milliliter cannot be measured accurately using this measuring cylinder. The next instrument we have taken here is a common balance, which is used to measure mass. Okay, and if I take the very common beam balance, we all have seen it. It has got two pans with a fulcrum in between. Okay, now here least count for this common balance means if you put the smallest value of weight here, if the beam balance gets disbalanced, then that means it can measure accurately up to that value. If you put a smaller value than this one, then this weight here, that means lesser than the least count, then this common balance will not be showing any deflection. Okay, this is how we generally calculate the least count for a common balance. And in the laboratory, we use a special type of balance called triple beam balance, which is used to measure the amount of chemicals that we use in the chemistry lab commonly. Okay, the triple beam balance, its least count, the minimum value up to which this triple beam balance can measure is equal to 1 milligram, or in terms of gram it is 0.0 gram. Okay, this is the least count of a triple beam balance. When we talk about the common balances that we use in the shops, okay, the least count for those will be 1 gram only. So this is the least count of a common balance. So we have done the least count for 4 instruments. We have done the least count for a scale. 1 division is equal to 0.1 centimeter. Secondly, we have done for clock also, which is used to measure time, where the seconds hand can give you the minimum time interval, that is equal to 1 second. The least count happens to be 1 second. Then we have done measuring cylinder. We have taken a 100 ml measuring cylinder into consideration, whose least count was equal to 1 milliliter. And we have also done the least count for a common balance, which is used to measure mass. And I have given you a special type of balance, a triple beam balance, which is used in the chemistry lab, whose least count is equal to 1 milligram or 0.01 gram. Okay, next we will be dealing with errors contained in these instruments. Now error means mistake. Okay, why does this mistake arise? It may arise because of a faulty instrument, or it may arise because of the person who is actually taking the measurement. He or she might make a mistake while taking measurement. That is how errors may arise. Okay, now error, what does it mean? It means the difference between the actual value, okay, and the measured value. The actual value of the length of an object may be 5 centimeter, but due to a faulty instrument or mistake of the person who is taking the observation might just come out to be 4.9 centimeter, but it was supposed to come as 5 centimeter. The measurement was actually 5 centimeter, but it happened that due to some error, the value observed that we see, the value was 4.9 centimeter. Now you have to just subtract these values. This 5 centimeter happens to be the actual value, the true value, that is also called true value. Okay, actual value minus the observed or measured value. If you subtract them, so if I take 5 centimeter minus 4.9 centimeter, I can put it in bracket, then the error that has come here, that has occurred here, is of 0.1 centimeter. Okay, so this is how an error may arise. Actual value will be different, okay, but due to some error, due to a faulty instrument, or due to fault of the observer, the measured value or the observed value may be different. The difference between the actual value or the true value and the observed or the measured value is only called error. Now we will take one or two instruments to be clear about the concept of error in measurement. Let me take a scale. Then 1 division, 2 division, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and here is 1 centimeter. This is 0 and here it is 1 centimeter. Now here it contains an error. The reason is, between 0 and 1 centimeter there should have been actually 10 divisions, but here we have just 9 divisions. That means this is not 1 centimeter, this is only 0.9 centimeter. So here itself we have got an error because of the instrument itself. Alright, now suppose I measure an object, I measure the length of an object, alright, which is somewhere here. Say 3, the value of the length of the object that I am measuring is 3.6 centimeter. This is my observed value. Okay, I've taken this scale, I've trusted the scale, I've taken the measurement, and the value has come to be 3.6 centimeter, which is not the true value or the actual value. But I know when I take a deep observation in the first 10 divisions, I see that the first 1 centimeter is not actually 1 centimeter, it is only 0.9 centimeter. Okay, so here I have taken this extra count here. Instead of 0.9, I've taken 1 centimeter itself. So I have to subtract that value to adjust my error. So correct observation, correct value will be this value that I just observed minus the error that the instrument contained. Here the instrument is containing an error of 0.1 centimeter, okay, because 1 minus 0.9 is equal to 0.1 centimeter is the amount of error contained in the scale. All right, this is the true value that should have been here, but the observed value is only 0.9 centimeter. So the correct value will be has to be adjusted in accordance to this error. All right, so 3.6 minus 0.1 centimeter, which is 3.5 centimeter. So the actual value or the correct value for the length of the object that I have measured using this faulty scale is only 3.5 centimeter, where I luckily observed that there is an error in the instrument and I could get the correct value. If I was not able to observe this error, then I would have taken the wrong value only. All right, so this is how we correct errors in any instrument. Another example for error, if I take a clock, okay, and say the clock is showing a time of 3 p.m. here, all right, but the clock is ahead by 5 minutes. We know that the clock is faulty, it has an error, it is running ahead by 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to 3 p.m. because it is ahead. It is showing 3 p.m. okay, but actually it is already ahead by 5 minutes. So actual time is somewhere lagging behind. Okay, so 3 p.m. minus 5 minutes will be equal to 2:55 p.m. So knowing the error, I can adjust the time, all right, to have the correct measurement. Or if the clock is running slow by 5 minutes, this was ahead, now this new clock is running slow by 5 minutes and it is showing a time of 3 p.m. only. Now I know it is running slow, so I have to add those 5 minutes to get the correct time. So it is 3:05 p.m. This is how we correct error. If a clock has got an error, this is how we correct the error in a clock. So correct time is given by the observed time. Okay, if it is running slow, then you have to add it. If it is running ahead, then you have to subtract it. Now we will take another example, okay, of a measuring cylinder. Measuring cylinder usually measures the volume of a liquid. Okay, now the liquid doesn't stand still in a glass container or any container. It will form a meniscus. This meniscus is formed and the observation has to be taken for the lower meniscus and not for this upper meniscus. Okay, now if I place my eyes right in front of the lower meniscus, if I see the reading to be 19.7 milliliter, okay, I placed my eyes right in front of the lower meniscus. Okay, now some other person will place his eyes somewhere here, if, okay, but he doesn't see the observation to be 19.7 milliliter. He will see it as a lower value, that is 19.6 milliliter. Okay, or another person may start taking the observation. Okay, he will place his eyes here, all right, and he sees that the volume is 19.8 milliliter. Now which one is correct? The person who is placing his eyes right in front of the meniscus, or the persons who are placing their eyes at an angle? Obviously the person who is placing his eyes straight. So the actual value is 19.7 milliliter, and this value, this observed value for this person is wrong. This person has also taken the wrong observation because they have given rise to an error that is commonly called parallax error. Parallax error does not occur because of a faulty instrument. This instrument is all right, it is perfectly fine, but error is lying in the person's viewing angle. If he doesn't view it right in front of the observation value, then what happens? We are bound to get an error. Okay, this is how error may arise. One is because of a faulty instrument, second one is because of the error of the observer. He does not place the eye right in front. Okay, he will place his eyes at an angle here or here. That is why we are getting an error called parallax error. Now talking about error in a beam balance. Why do we get an error in a beam balance? The main reason here is because both the pans have to be equal. The masses on both the pans have to be equal before the measurement is taken. Okay, you cannot place some mass on one pan, okay, leave the other pan empty and then start taking the measurement. Initially both the pans should be empty. The beam should be perfectly horizontal, then only we can start taking measurement, otherwise we will start getting error. Okay, and secondly, how to avoid error in a beam balance? You have to properly clean both the pans of the beam balance, because if any one of the pans is dirty, extra weight or extra mass has come into that pan, okay, which will be giving rise to an error. All right, now next what we will do in this class is we will learn how to take measurement for irregular objects. For regular objects we have got formulas already, which will give you the value, correct value for area or volume. All right, but if the object happens to be an irregular one, we don't have any devised formula to calculate their area or volume. So we will do two measurements here. One, we will first take measurement of area of an irregular lamina, a flat object, but the shape is not regular. Okay. Secondly, we will learn how to measure the volume of an irregular solid. All right. So first, let us see how to measure area of an irregular lamina. So this is how we do it. We calculate the area of an irregular lamina using a graph sheet. The process I'll explain to you. You take the irregular lamina, say a leaf. Okay, leaf is not regularly shaped. You just place the leaf on a graph paper. Okay, the graph paper, just place it and mark the boundary of the leaf using a pencil and remove the leaf. Okay, and all you need to do is just count the number of squares that are completely there, that are completely covered, and those squares which are more than half covered. Okay, so I'll first count the complete squares. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13. So 13 squares are completely coming under this irregular lamina. Okay, and we will not take the squares which are less than half covered. We will take the squares which is more than half. So 1 2, this is not more than half, this is 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 more than half. This cannot be taken more than half. All right, so if I just count the number of ticks that have come, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20. So 20 squares. Okay, and we know that each square is 1 centimeter into 1 centimeter, that is equal to 1 centimeter square. So the area of this irregular lamina, in our case we have taken a leaf, that is area is equal to number of squares, complete and more than half squares, multiplied by area of each square, that is 1 centimeter square. So 20 centimeter square is the area of the irregular lamina we have taken into consideration. This will not be giving you an exact value because we have left out these half squares, okay, less than half squares, but more or less we are able to have an idea about the value of the area of this irregular object using a graph paper. Let's see now how volume of an irregular solid can be measured. The instrument or the device used is a measuring cylinder. Alright, if it was a regular solid like a cube or a cylinder, then we would have easily applied it in the formula. Then we could have easily calculated the volume. But since it is an irregular one, say a stone, the volume cannot be measured using any formula. So we have to use a measuring cylinder. For this, we fill the measuring cylinder with water up to a certain level. Here, the initial level of water is 30 centimeter cube. Say the unit of volume we have used in the cylinder is centimeter cube. Okay. Now, next step, what we are going to do is we will tie the irregular solid with a thread. Okay. And carefully, without touching it to the walls of the measuring cylinder, we are going to dip the stone or the irregular object. Okay, we have to make sure that this does not touch the walls of the measuring cylinder. Now we will see that after, as soon as we put the stone in this water, we don't put any extra water, but we see that the water level automatically rises up. Okay, the reason is the volume of the water will be displaced by the volume of the stone. That means the volume of water that has risen up, that has been displaced, will be exactly equal to the volume of the irregular object. So we just have to observe the final level of water, which is in our case 50 centimeter cube. Okay, now the volume of the irregular solid will be equal to the volume of the displaced water. Okay, so we can say volume of the solid is equal to final level of water minus initial level of water, that is 20 centimeter cube. This is how we measure the volume of an irregularly shaped object using a measuring cylinder. Okay, so we have come to the end of the chapter, and let me give you a brief revision of what we have done in today's class. Firstly, we came to know about the various measuring instruments. The measuring instruments that we have discussed today are firstly scale for the measurement of length. Secondly, we have discussed clocks for measurement of time. Thirdly, we have discussed measuring cylinder for measurement of volume. And lastly, we have taken common balance, which is used for measurement of mass. And we have learned about the least count for each case. And we also have done errors. And I have also told you in brief how to minimize these errors. And we have learned how to calculate area and volume of irregularly shaped objects using a graph paper and a measuring cylinder respectively. That is all for today's class and this chapter. Thank you for paying attention.